Thank you all for joining in. Over to you, Anuj Kejriwal.
Hi, thank you very much. I do want to quickly actually start off with thanking Mandeep, you and your team to actually put this together. I think we had a fantastic time yesterday and a great time today, so big applause for that. Uh, Quick one, I think we've got a great panel here, interesting ideas to come up through the day. So let me start off. Our topic for the day is how do freestanding restaurants and the hotels kind of collaborate. Uh, Originally both these sectors have grown independently, serving very different target audiences years back. Over a period of time, these have actually matured into now kind of serving the same consumer. I mean, both of them have premiumized themselves, a lot of restaurants opening across the country, a lot of hotels are opening across the country, and I'm actually going to now pose my first question to Veer. To Veer, to really say that, put yourself in the consumer's place here and tell us that, what do you want as a consumer between the hotel and the restaurant industry?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, can you hear me? We've had endless problems with mics. Okay. Yeah, I'll talk not just as a consumer, but somebody who writes about the sector. I think we're at an inflection point in India. When the hotel industry grew, there weren't that many restaurants. So the hotel industry believed it had to have restaurants. We think now that it's always been the case. It wasn't actually the case. Till the Oberoi Intercontinental opened in 1965 in Delhi with 5-6 restaurants. The Oberoi Sheraton in 1972 in Bombay. The Taj Mahal Intercontinental, as it then was, also around the same time. Hotels in India had no tradition of having lots and lots of restaurants. But because the hotel industry was growing, the restaurant sector was not very big. Hotels regarded it as their business to build lots and lots of restaurants. It was not, I think, a particularly good idea in the long run. I think the time has now come, now that there's a full-fledged restaurant sector which is doing very well. And given that most hotel restaurants are actually nowadays crap and overpriced, I mean, it's a long time since any hotel has opened a restaurant. Possible exception is Loya, that I have found interesting in the last 3 years. I think it's time for a divorce. I think we need to follow the example of the rest of the world. The restaurant sector should flourish. The hotel sector should flourish. And if hotels want to do food, there's a very good restaurant sector. Why not ask them to do it for you?
Great. Wow, Veer. Thank you. And I love that word, divorce. I'm going to move to Vikramjit with that divorce question. And I'm going to put 2-3 questions and you can club it and answer it. One is, what is this collaboration between freestanding and the hotels? How does it really impact the overall hospitality experience for a consumer? And we'll continue that conversation. 2, how large a part does the F&B in a hotel play for the consumer experience?
Okay, so do I need to answer all of them or?
Just 2 of them, you can club it and
Mandeep
answer.
told me I'll just be asked one question here, so anyway.
No, this is your second panel, so you get 2.
So basically, we're talking about divorcing the wife and bringing the girlfriend in. Is that right, guys?
They can't say that. They can't say that openly.
So, see, I'll tell you, let me give you the mindset of a hotelier. The hotel business has 2 parts. There is the room business and there is the food and beverage business. The room part of the business has a 70% margin, 80% margin. The variable cost of selling a room is practically nothing. So that margin is 80%. Then you look at the food and beverage business, and you look at the food and beverage business or the P&L of a restaurant in a hotel. It could be minus 20% to plus 10%. I'm giving you the best case scenario. Sorry. Can everyone hear me, please? So, see, there is one part of the business which has 70% margin. There is another part of the business which is 0% margin, minus margin. You need a different mindset for these parts of the business. And if you try and do it together, what comes out of it is that your entire energy, your focus goes into the higher margin business. And therefore, food and beverage in general gets neglected. Now, Puneet Dhawan sitting there gave me a great example. He says, when hotels start planning restaurants, they look at a breakfast room. They need a space to give breakfast to their guests. And everything else is incidental. Not much thought, not much planning, not much goes into that space. So it's best that the divorce happens. It's best that the specialists come in and they run that space. They'll do it better for you. And they'll get you more footfalls, which will actually benefit your hotel business and your room business, which is what you typically want. So this is the way I see future of the business.
Sure. And just one follow-up question on that, which is also critical. You know, whilst you did say that, 70% of the margin does come from the room. But my question is that given, the number of hotels and the number of rooms coming up, as a consumer, if I get a wholesome experience at a particular hotel, including the F&B, does that help you in selling the room where you have a 70% margin? So, let me look at a different real estate right now. You got office buildings. You have 1 million square feet of an office that you continue to build, which you could lease out at any price. But you still give those utilities of F&B down because, you get that 5 rupees extra on every office. Does that logic also work for a hotel?
A classic example of that would be AeroCity. I told you it has 5,000 rooms. How well do the restaurants in those hotels do? Everybody steps out. Yeah, the central alley on Worldmark is full. The restaurants in the hotels are empty. So that, I think, answers your question.
Yeah, endless numbers of hotels, one successful restaurant, K3, everything else is standalone. No?
Wow. Absolutely.
So I'm happy that this is getting supported for. So Udai, I'll quickly move to you. You have some international brands in India. If you can give us an example from what you've learned internationally with some of your brands, how they've been inside hotels, and really how is it that we can collaborate in India?
Sure. Am I audible? Great. So thank you for that question, Anuj. So let me take the example of Hakkasan that we run in India. While there are no Yavachas globally in other hotels, there's a Hakkasan in Atlantis, as most of you know, in Dubai. And one of the investors currently of Hakkasan, who's also invested in Four Seasons, strongly believes that there are synergies to go there. And if I take the example of Jane George globally, if you see, they are in half a dozen, in fact, half their restaurants are only in 5-star hotels. It's not unheard of. And obviously, it's a question of focus. It's really a question of focus. And I don't think hotels are necessarily losing much by not having great restaurant brands. But I do believe that there's a huge upside that probably that's not getting captured. Look, real estate, it's all said and done a real estate business when you look at it from one paradigm, right? Now, if you have that space, why put a relatively suboptimal F&B experience when you can leave that to an expert and make more money out of it? Typical rev share kind of collaborations where, because if you look at that spectrum, on one hand, a hotel has in the past behaved like an operator when they've done everything required to run a restaurant. On the other end of the spectrum is where a hotel can behave like a landlord and say, look, here's the space. What are restaurants dying for? A great location. You have a great location, right? So instead of you going out and hunting and really claiming a great location, look at a great location that's already there and bring in a concept.
And in India, an organized place with probably legal licenses.
In the realm of relationships, I would say that, take it with a pinch of salt, but hotels are like elder sisters to a younger sibling called restaurants. They've started earlier, they're far more organized in life. I have an elder sister, so I'm biased towards that. And they know how to scale, they have access to great talent, they have run great loyalty programs. Restaurants have done brilliant, they've given brilliant consumer experience, but they're fragmented. They can't scale, they haven't scaled. They can scale, sorry, but they haven't. There's a lot of synergy there where you can go and be in that space, add value to them, give them a rev share, and learn a lot from what they've learned as an experience.
Just to add to that also, I'm saying if you already have the consumer coming inside the hotel, whilst you said that, they don't lose a client if they don't have F&B, but I'm saying there is a wallet size of the client. You're using that wallet size for the room. He's definitely having a meal. Why would you let that wallet size go away?
This is very tempting, but I think I would want to deliberately pull us out of this inside-out view and come from an outside-in view. The fundamental question I think one of you mentioned is a guest going to book hotel A, a room in a hotel A versus a hotel B because there's a great restaurant in it? because no one's going to stop him from walking into that restaurant even if he's staying in a hotel beside it, right? So for a consumer, for a guest, if that's not going to be the driving choice, I mean, I can have all kinds of contrived logic around it, but I don't think that necessarily cuts eyes that, but yeah, I mean, if I push that argument, yes, I mean, there could be, everything else being equal, it can push preference. Also, I'd like to draw a distinction. There are hotel brands which people will go blindly to because it's a no-brainer for them, because they're frequent travelers, they'll still go there. I mean, restaurant, no restaurant, they'll just go there because, end of the day, they just want to come, and as the gentleman from ITC was saying, they just want to go and get a good bed, sleep, have breakfast and leave. But there are hotel brands which can create a lot of distinction by having these kind of properties. So it's no one-size-fits-all answer, really, if you ask me.
Nikesh, let me come next to you quickly. I think Vikram or Veer, one of them did mention that, in places like Dubai and overseas, you have a lot of these restaurants which sit inside hotels. Udai did mention there's a Hakkasan at the Atlantis. But, I know you're from Chennai, and Chennai has been a force-fit in this. If you can throw some light on it, because in Chennai, you only get an alcohol license if you sit in a hotel property or under a hotel license.
Yeah, thanks, Anuj. So I think in that way, Chennai has a lot of similarity to Dubai. So Dubai is again another city where liquor licenses are only available to 5-star hotels or in the IFC or free trade zones. So that's been a very a marriage born out of need. I would say that because the license was not available and all the big restaurants wanted to have the liquor, the flexibility to offer a good champagne or a good wine along with the meal, that they ended up going to hotels. But I think it's proven the test of time. Over a period of time, restaurants have done increasingly well in hotels, and I would slightly differ from what Udai mentioned earlier, that restaurants won't be a deciding factor to go to a hotel. I would say that certain destination locations, for example, Marina Bay Sands, it offers 80 offerings in F&B. Obviously, if a person is going for a vacation, you're like, why do I need to step out if I can just go down the elevator, right? That makes a difference. Why does Atlantis have so many F&B offerings? I think it makes a difference. Obviously, it depends on a business traveler and a leisure traveler. There will be some difference, but I do believe that F&B plays that little bit factor in kind of decision making. Sometime earlier, even the gentleman from Make My Trip was mentioning that the use case for travel is different. So when the use case for travel is leisure or entertainment, I think in that case, F&B plays a major role in you deciding where you want to stay. And I think this marriage, as seen in Dubai and in Chennai also, unfortunately in Chennai, we've not seen so many examples of 5-star hotels allowing restaurants to come in yet, but a lot of boutique properties have. I run one boutique property like that as well, where a lot of revenue actually comes from F&B. Like what we said, the margins might be in rooms higher, but the F&B at large can generate much more revenue because it's not an absolute product. Unlike the number of rooms that you have, you can sell only once a day. I can do turns in my restaurant. So there are some places where I do 5 turns a day, which is not possible in a room. So I'm able to generate that revenue, which I guess in the room you can't.
Pawan, you've done one such marriage in Goa, where you run, a boutique hotel along with a large F&B. If you can probably throw some light on it to say that, why did you conceptualize this? And how are you really bringing that marriage together today?
Definitely. Thanks, Anuj. So, firstly, at Chrome Hospitality, we are a primary restaurant-forward company. Our vision was always to create the best F&B experiences in a standalone format. Goa as an entrant for us, we wanted to create a space where with great F&B, we also offer great hospitality experiences, right? So this boutique hotel with a villa combined serves that to a guest along with some amazing F&B, which is in-house to the hotel. I feel that when a lot of restaurants are, the hotels, when they're planning the space initially, the space allocated, as Sir rightly said, was primarily for a breakfast room, right? It's not conceptualized that let's make this the best restaurant in the city. When we were building Kaya, our primary focus was, okay, we're going to do a great hotel with amazing experiences, but also have a restaurant offering that pulls people from every part of Goa to our space, right? A lot of focus on the chef, the way the interiors of the restaurant, etc., would be, which are all the key factors or rather the pillars of making a great restaurant, was planned in the very initial stages. Now, in this case, a lot of times the space might not look like a breakfast room or maybe a very standardized space sort of fitting in for breakfast and lunch and dinner, right? And also when we were conceptualizing the kitchen, we kept in mind that there's a separate space for the in-room dining and then a whole separate arena where the F&B or the restaurant would be served from. I think during inception, if this could be planned, and maybe if the hotels also say identify a couple of key operators or international franchisees that would suit the standard and the bandwidth of their space, it is then that this marriage would be really successful.
Interesting. Vikram, let me come back to you quickly. You know, what do you really see are the challenges in actually this collaboration happening? You know, and to his point, you know, whilst you did say that we can pre-plan this while the hotel is being built, is there also a way for retrofitting these restaurants into current hotels?
I think the biggest challenge is in the mindset. It's in the mindset of the hoteliers to accept that yes, there are people who do F&B better than me. Let me bring them in, let them run my restaurants for me, because I anyway don't make any money from it, yeah? Like I said, if hoteliers were to examine P&Ls of their restaurants, they will be in for a nightmare. So it's just the challenges in the mindset. Of course, you know, in a green field or a brown field, it's so much easier. In a retrofit, there is a problem because you're receiving, your back of the house, your service area, your staff facilities, a lot of it will be shared. But it can be done. But the mindset has to change.
These guys are doing, right? So, you know, when someone leaves a space, I mean, they go in and they retrofit that space.
Yeah. So just to give you my own example, I've just turned entrepreneur and founded a hotel company where the entire food and beverage has been outsourced to a company called Moonshine, which is a joint venture between the serial restaurateur called Vishal Anand and the two-time Michelin star chef Atul Kochar. They're going to run the entire F&B in my hotel, which will open in a few months in Gurgaon. So, and I think they are the best guys to do it. I don't have the capability to do it as well as them. So just let the experts do it. And I'll focus on selling my rooms, yeah.
And just for everyone's reference, what was the F&B margin earlier and what are you expecting now?
I'll get a fixed share, man. If I was running it, I would have probably made zero, yeah. Now at least I'm guaranteed of a certain rev share, yeah.
That's the point.
Udai, quickly coming to you, what's the possible collaborations that you think can happen between the two industries?
So,
Udai.
all right. You want to take a shot? No. Okay. So Anuj, I really think that there is an opportunity to create, you know, it's the marriage of a great space, a great location where, you know, a hotel brand already has a good location, a good vibe, and there are people coming, and then they want a strong F&B concept, and you don't want them to break their head and break their bank doing that. And if there's a great brand that we have, and let me say something that I would want everyone to forget very quickly, but let's say if I had to take a Hakkasan to a Delhi, there are already people who are very interested in doing that because the brand has that strength, will bring a certain vibe to the location, to the hotel and so on and so forth. So why not? So I think it is really speaking, I won't put it in the realm of a norm, but I think there's opportunistically, when you look at these kind of opportunities that can be available, where there's a great hotel brand and there's a great restaurant brand, they can go together for sure. And hence, I would say that we for sure, you know, because we firmly believe, so the whole, what's the mission of Aditya Birla when we have got into it is that we believe that we've taken on a challenge which has not really been taken on earlier, which is to scale the restaurant business. To be able to replicate the same attention to detail, the quality, the experience that you get in a restaurant, if I take the restaurant to 5 locations in the country, which deserves to go to. To do that, we will definitely want to collaborate with brands, hotel brands, who've been there and done that, at least in terms of being able to understand the markets, the consumers, the location and so on. So I think it's completely possible. It's about being able to marry the right restaurant brand with the right hotel brand. And just to talk about the economics of it very briefly without getting into the numbers, the point is again precisely what you're saying, that the restaurant business margins, you know, are wafer thin versus a hotel business, right? Why would the hotel, or why should Beyond a Point, you know, they break their heads on that? You know, where there is a certain revenue share that they can take, which I see as the cost of my rental, which I would pay anywhere outside. So I'd rather give that to a organized and a very well settled player, and then, you know, then I get also then the other synergies. If they want, they can invest in a bit of the capex to get it done. They have a great talent pool that they want to get into. I was interviewing a bunch of IHM graduates over the last couple of weeks, and there is a certain talent pool who wants to work specifically in F&B, who don't necessarily always want to go to a hotel. That's another reason why, you know, you can have talent pools which they actually get from the top schools. You can give them an opportunity to work in the F&B space, which is far more focused. So many such, you know, collaborations and opportunities are possible. I just think that, you know, it's a question of starting somewhere and being able to have a very specific, clearly defined goals, common purpose, where there will be strong linkages, where there will be loose linkages, so that there's no slippages in operations as you go forward. That's my view.
No, thank you. I think that's a great answer. But just Veer, I'm going to come back to you, and I'm going to go back to you being a consumer. You know, Vikram did mention that, you know, rooms still get sold. I am saying as a consumer, would you make a differentiated choice to staying at a particular hotel which had a larger F&B offering in it?
Yeah, no, I think that question's already been answered by everyone here. It makes no difference. As somebody said, if you're staying at the Oberoi, it doesn't mean you can't go to the Taj's restaurants, right? So I don't think anybody makes any decisions based on that. However, abroad, you do have hotels that say, we have a 2 Michelin star restaurant, we have a 3 Michelin star restaurant, as a way of promoting themselves. But here's the thing, all of those restaurants are outsourced. Ever since the old Forte organization invited Marco Pierre White in London into what was then the Hyde Park Hotel and is now the Mandarin Oriental, there's been a tradition of all of these hotels getting good chefs from outside. The Connaught, venerable old London hotel, since in 2002, they handed over everything, including the room service, to Gordon Ramsay. So I know this is an interesting discussion to have, but ultimately it's academic. We are going to follow the rest of the world. Just as our hotel chains are international, our practices will be international. Internationally, hotels have decided that when you open new properties, outsource your restaurants, they do this better than you do. Now, we have a problem in India because we have legacy properties which have chefs, we have restaurants. What do? Do you get rid of those chefs? Do you get rid of that staff? So I think older hotel companies are going to have to grapple with that decision. But when they open new properties, I don't think they need to worry. I think they should just plan to outsource those restaurants. It works. Let's take, say, the Lodhi Hotel in Delhi, which used to be the Aman. The only restaurant anyone goes to is the one slightly outside, which is Indian Accent, which is completely outsourced. Wherever you see a hotel that's well regarded because of its food elsewhere in the world, including Bangkok and Hong Kong now, it's always a chef from outside. Dubai, as we said, is a slightly bad example because people go to hotels because they want liquor licenses. But even then, we took the example of Hakkasan in Atlantis. Not only is Hakkasan an outside brand in Atlantis, Hakkasan has insisted on a separate entrance. So you don't have to go through Atlantis to go to Hakkasan. So this is pretty much the wave of the future. And like it or not, it's going to happen.
One quick one to you on this. You know, just throw some light for us since you're running a hotel with a restaurant. Are there any different, models under which this collaboration should work? And is there a cultural difference which needs to be bridged for this collaboration to happen?
So for me, firstly, if I had to think of being a hotel owner who wants to outsource the restaurant and not run it internally, I think there are two things that primarily would sort of strike the chord for me. Number one, in terms of business sense, am I booking the top line or does the operator book it, right? And if the top lines are going to be heavy, which I am expecting it to if I'm outsourcing it, right, I would ideally as a hotel owner would want to retain the top line with me. This would include the sales by my in-room guests as well. So I know I am giving a captive audience to the operator, right? While again, being from the restaurant business, if I had to again collaborate, I would want that too. So I think this is a gap or rather a bridge that somewhere midway, both the parties would want to meet. That is one. And second thing that would be very important for me is to ensure the value chain that I've created for my hotel or rather, some signature aspects, the brand value that I've created, the restaurant operator needs to retain that and be in sync with it. It should not be a marriage of convenience or commercials. It needs to be, a marriage where it is scalable in the future. So for that matter, if a quick example I would like to give you, if Kaya is a slow living hotel, I cannot ever get an operator who wants to run a high energy bar over there, right? That even if the top line would be amazing, because it would completely ruin what I'm trying to create. So that is something that needs to be in sync, and I think if these 2 points could be met along with the rest of the infrastructure, issues that need to be dealt with, which would for me be secondary. But I think these 2 primary points, if everyone's on the same page with, dealing with infrastructure becomes way more easier, because now both of them have intended to sort of participate in this.
Got it. Super. Nikesh, one quick one for you. Since you've done some restaurant in some hotels, is there really economies of scale that comes in because of you being inside a hotel? And then is there some advantages on marketing this concept of collaboration together along with a hotel, given that your end consumer may be the same?
Thanks. So Anuj, I look at it in 2 ways. One is it the economies of scale by going inside a hotel, or economies of scale by having a brand which has multiple outposts going inside a hotel? So I think the more economies of scale lie on this side than the other side, because if you are a brand which has multiple outlets, you're not relying on that one superstar chef. You have a team that in case that chef leaves, you can pull another person, or you can have a lending hand from another person kind of come and give you support. Same as the same for any other support staff, and the consumer base as well. Maybe I operate 5 of these, let's take Hakkasan as an example. They operate all over the world. So now the consumer base has already experienced this brand. When they come into your hotel, they're expecting a particular standard. They're getting the same economies, the benefit of economies of scale by getting talent which is probably moved around different cities. They know what customer palettes are like, and I've evolved accordingly. As far as the marketing aspect of your question goes, I think it works both ways. The brand gets a more, for a lot of local brands, like if you're a restaurant in a particular city which does not have an outpost in any other city, you get a sort of a global outreach, because the consumer base that you will get in a hotel might vary slightly than what you get in a standalone setting, because you will get the foreign individual travelers or the group travelers that might not go anywhere else but go dine in their own hotel, which you as a standalone restaurant might not experience, because they might not come to you. And if they have a good experience, they probably write about it on TripAdvisor, might tell their friends and family. Suddenly you have an outreach of people who kind of heard about your brand sitting in a different country where you never imagined that to happen. So that's the marketing aspect on which the restaurant benefits. As far as the hotel is concerned, the hotel benefits from marketing, because I think if a restaurant player runs only one restaurant brand, he's going to go all out and promote that restaurant. I think that's one place in which a lot of the hotels today lack. A lot of hotels have Instagram handles or social media pages where they promote their hotels. They don't have separately, even the larger chains that had today, a lot of them don't have individual pages or don't individually promote their restaurants. They promote the overall F&B dining experience, but they don't go out and market restaurants like how a standalone restaurant operator markets a restaurant daily. So I think there is a benefit on both aspects, and I think there will be synergy, and both will benefit from the collaborative marketing. I think the whole world is moving towards collaboration, and I think in the marketing space, collaboration will benefit both places equitably.
No, that's a great answer. And Vikram, I want to take that.
I just added my defense to it. On the second bit, specifically marketing and the brand, I think, sorry, is this better? Sorry. So I think we just need to be, again, it has to be thought through and to be done carefully, because they have to continue to run as 2 independent brands at the end of the day, because each of them has their own character, and each of them has their own guidelines. Whether it's an Indian brand or a global hotel brand, it has its own set of guidelines, what it has to stick to, and a restaurant brand has its own. Both for the purposes of reputation, I mean, God forbid if something goes wrong in one of the brands, you don't want the other brand to get affected, right? The hotel brand shouldn't get affected if something happens in the restaurant, nor the other way around. So that's very important that they continue to run that way. Apart from the general hassles of, it's extremely difficult to get approval saying that, I'll put this brand right corner, top, bottom, right, upar, niche. It's not easy to run collaborative marketing campaigns so easily. But that small thing apart, I think you should run these very carefully. It should be thought through before rushing in together. That one aspect, I think, as brands, should be very, very well thought through.
I'm going to come back to you on what models this can be run under, but I want to take his answer back to Vikram once. Vikram, do you think, given some restaurants could do extremely well, in maybe boutique hotels or even the larger hotels, do you see in the future that sometimes the hotel could become an address because it has a great restaurant in it?
Yes and no. So I'll tell you why yes, because see, why does a customer choose a hotel? In a business city, it is location. And like Veer correctly said, you can be staying in Hotel A and you could go to Hotel B and dine. So the primary reason for choosing a hotel to stay is the location. So location, location, location. And traffic in India is so beautiful that you don't want to be more than a few kilometers away from your office. So I think business hotels will continue to be chosen because of location. This can be an added advantage, but I don't think it's a big reason to stay in Hotel A versus Hotel B. So I doubt if that will happen. But
let me give you an example. I stay in Bombay. Assume I go to Hotel X, which I love the restaurant. And one of these guys has a restaurant there. Over a period of time, I build affinity to that hotel because I keep going there back for that same restaurant. And then I decide to travel to Delhi. I have an option of going back to option X, which is in Bombay, as against option Y, given both locations are great. What do I choose?
So let me answer that differently, and you should put this to the audience. How many people stay at the Lodi because of Indian accent? I don't think anyone makes that choice because of Indian accent. So that answers your question.
Anyways. I still personally...
Maybe you should do an audience poll with that.
But Lodhi doesn't have a competition with it. I'm saying, assume this was AeroCity, where I have 30 hotels. Okay.
And another 60 restaurants outside.
Do I still build another 60, 70 coming? But I'm saying, do I build affinity towards a brand over a period of time? This is like, you build affinity even towards a mall over a period of time. If you continue to visit it, why would this not apply to a hotel over a period of time? I mean, other than all the loyalty programs, can I still build that affinity?
In my view, it doesn't apply. And I gave you the classic example of Lodi and the Indian accent. People don't choose the Lodi over the Oberoi or the Taj Mansingh because there is an Indian accent there. But that's my view, yeah.
Can I add in?
Sure. Yeah, please.
Okay. So, little different perspective. I feel there are brands which have already created a legacy, the Lodi being one of them. People would have heard about it way before Indian accent even came in. For more younger brands, if say a couple of hotels had to compete, Kaya for that matter, now if Kaya has a restaurant which is say #1 in India right now, which Indian accent currently is, and versus 4 more of my competitors in the same street, I think somebody would pick Kaya because an Indian accent has a restaurant.
Given they were the same micro market.
Yeah,
which is what my question is. Given it's the same micro market, can I build an affinity over a period of time? Udai is wanting to say something.
I think,
I think this is nonsense. I mean, this is a hypothetical example. I think the Indian accent question is a good one. For many years, the traditional best restaurant in India has been Bukhara. I don't see anyone refusing to stay at the Taj Mahal Hotel in Delhi and saying, I will stay at the Maurya because it has Bukhara. He'll go to Bukhara, he'll eat over there. But I don't think Indians necessarily see those restaurants as an integral part of the hotel. Where it does make a difference is if a hotel's food generally is bad, if you get up and the breakfast is bad, if occasionally you want room service and room service is bad, then people will say about a hotel, yes, the food is not very good. But I am very skeptical of the proposition that anyone is going to make a decision based on a restaurant. I think the one way it could work is that if you have a great restaurant and a great brand, people may hear of the hotel or go to it because they're going to the restaurant, which they wouldn't otherwise. There's a very famous example in London on Park Lane next to the Hilton. There was a hotel called the Londonderry. They pulled it down and they built the Metropolitan Hotel, or the Met as it's known. The only reason people went to the Met was because it was the first Nobu in Europe. It was run by Nobu. They were just sort of renting it out. But at least people heard of the hotel because of that. Nobody stayed at the Met as a consequence. I certainly didn't. But they felt that it was a hotel that was worthy of note because it had Nobu. I also think that there's another issue which I think hoteliers have. I think hoteliers in India, because of the legacy, have an exaggerated sense of self-importance. Essentially, when you run a hotel, you're a renter of space. People come and stay in your rooms. You're renting the space to them. Yes, you provide ambiance, service, etc. But that's your key business. When it comes to food, I think you have to also see yourself as a renter of space. Rent your restaurant spaces. Let good people run them. You will be better off. You will make more money, and your guests will get better food.
I so agree with you. We don't create addresses with restaurants, but yeah, eventually it is a great
collab. Anuj. See, the mindset of running the room business and the food and beverage is very different. And therefore, two different set of people need to run it, not one.
Yeah, but both of you all said it nicely. I mean, the hotel owner now has to just look at himself as a landlord to say, I'm renting rooms and I'm renting restaurants, and not try and run the whole thing himself. Great. I think with that, we'll kind of close the panel. We've got about 5 minutes. If there are any questions in the audience, please feel free. Okay, we'll go 3, 2, 1. I think we're done.
Great.
Thank you so much, guys.